Hi, this is Kelly, and you're listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, the podcast where two Midwestern moms talk progressive politics and political activism with authors, activists, politicians, candidates, and more. On today's episode, I'm talking to four women who started as Moms Demand Action volunteers and are now running for office. We have Nancy DePastino in Montana, Amber Gustafson in Iowa, Christy Clark in North Carolina, and Nicole Bedi in Michigan. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed recording this episode.
Are you la la listening?
I am here in this segment with Nancy DePastino, who is running for the Montana House in District 91. Hello, Nancy.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. So, to start, just tell me a little bit about why you've decided to run for office.
Sure. A little over 5 years ago, I started the Montana chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America because I was absolutely heartbroken by what happened at Sandy Hook Elementary. My daughter was in first grade that year, and I decided that I needed to do more. I learned very quickly that you can't go it alone. You have to be part of and build a movement. So that's what I did in my state of Montana. And we've been very successful on a difficult issue. It's a difficult issue all over America, but in Montana particularly so. And we have fought and we have defeated every bill that we fought in the 2015 and 2017 legislatures. The Montana legislature is in session every other year. And though I'm incredibly proud of all those things, we've kept guns off of college campuses and out of K through 12 schools and defeated permitless carry and, a lot of good things to keep our community safe. All that work, and it's been 5 years of very dedicated volunteers that putting in a lot of hours of hard work, has been to hold the line. And we're not making any progress holding the line, although it's, we think of it as very, very much progress, not letting our already fairly weak gun laws be dismantled. So I decided to run for office because I want to do more than hold the line. I want to make progress in Montana on our extremely high rate of suicide. We're the second highest in the nation. We're always in the top 5 for the last 40 years have been top 5. And keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. And I think that with things like red flag laws, we can kind of help both of those issues that are top of the list of gun violence problems in Montana.
So tell me a little bit about the Montana House. This has got to be a difficult state to govern. It's such an enormous state, but with a relatively small population. So what does a state house district look like? How big an area is that? And what does District 91 look like in particular?
Well, yeah, you're right. It is a huge state, a lot of rural areas, and so we do have a lot of legislators coming from areas that are vastly rural. The district that I'm in Missoula, is probably one of the most progressive, it is one of the most progressive districts in Montana. And, and therefore somebody like me can run on this issue and hopefully win a seat in the Montana House. Our House and Senate is mostly Republican. It's not an incredibly skewed makeup of the House, but it's strongly Republican. So we've had to, in working on these bills that we were fighting, definitely always had to work across the aisle and find those reasonable people who wanted to listen to facts and listen to survivor stories and listen to reason in order to do the right thing, to keep guns out of our K through 12 schools. And, and we had a Republican legislator in the 2017 session step up and say, hey, I want to speak at your press conference to talk about why we don't want guns in K through 12 schools. So we not only had them taking kind of the quiet votes, we had them out speaking up for sensible legislation in Montana. So I think it's very important that, coming from Missoula to go represent this progressive district in Helena, that I would always keep in mind that we have strong progressive values in Missoula. And I'm very proud of that. And I want us to be an unashamed progressive voice in Montana. But you come with reason and you come with a willingness to listen and you come with the idea that you yourself could be persuaded. So it kind of opens up this space for active listening and collaboration. And I think that those things are really important. You can't be such a house divided and get anything done.
And so you said that the legislature meets every other year. Can you talk a little bit about what that structure looks like?
Sure. Yeah. So they meet for a 90-day session every other year. It's generally about January through April in Helena. And then there's an interim session in the off years. So there's a lot of, work that gets done in the interim session. But the legislature convenes to, actually vote and debate and all that good stuff every other year, the odd years.
We've talked about this occasionally on this podcast about how different states set things up. In some places, the state legislature is a full-time position, and other places it has this structure where it meets less regularly or regularly but less frequently. And, how that sort of sets up a little bit who can actually run for an office like that, who can take that time every other year, but not take it away from either a full-time job or being home with their families. Do you see that a little bit in the makeup of who is in the legislature right now?
Absolutely. It's a really good point. And it's, you go, and I've spent a lot of time at the Montana legislature in the last 5 years observing, and you go and you realize that most of these folks are retired. So they can take that time away from their normal life, or they don't need to be working. They can leave their job. They can take a leave of absence, something like that. And the result is you don't see a lot of people who are in my phase of life and my phase of motherhood. They're in the legislature. It's not usually possible for us to go away. And it's not easy for me to be doing this. And I've learned that, even during the campaign, like I work a more than full-time job with Moms Demand Action and have 2 wonderful young kids who are 8 and 11. And it's difficult to find the time that it takes to go out and meet all the voters that I want to meet and be at every political event that I want to do and, to really pour everything that this campaign deserves into it. And so I think that's what keeps a lot of people from more diverse backgrounds from even trying. And, and people will ask me how I do this and how I manage all this. And my answer is simply, it is not as impossible as it is necessary for people like me to do this, to find the time, to find the little miraculous bits of space in my life to be able to do this, because there's not a lot of people representing people like me, people in this phase of motherhood with kids in public schools, with, 2 working parents, so really understand what working families are experiencing in Montana. And it will be difficult financially and with time and on my family, but I think that it is absolutely necessary.
I agree completely. And that's something I've been thinking a lot about. I also have 2 kids. Mine are a little bit younger, but yeah, it's so, you just don't see that many moms, or even dads, but especially moms of young children, elementary school age children who are in office. And so it's hard to see how those views can be adequately represented without at least some of those voices in office.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because those issues are not hypothetical or theoretical to me. They're very real. What affects working families in Montana affects me. What affects mothers of young kids in Montana affects me. And what affects the school children affects my family. And I'm a graduate of the University of Montana, and I have a son in elementary school and a daughter in middle school. And so we're kind of, we've experienced all the, different phases of school so far, except for high school, which is right down the road. And, and I think that is a unique perspective. And it's not something that some of these retired folks are, they remember what it was like in their day. Well, things are changing so fast in our world. And for our kids, they're so different from when we were in school. And, the technology has changed so much, and they need to be current with that, and they need to be learning that, and they need to be learning logic instead of memorizing facts, because they need to learn how to think. facts are available at the touch of a button now. So we need logical thinkers, creative thinkers, and innovations in education. And I think that is not as obvious to people who don't have kids experiencing, all the things that 8-year-olds and 11-year-olds are experiencing right now.
Maybe we should have some kid representatives in state legislature, too.
Totally.
My 6-year-old would be happy to volunteer for that. So obviously, gun safety is an important issue to you, along with education. Mm-hmm. What are some of the other issues that are really driving your campaign?
Yeah, so my work in gun violence prevention was spurred by wanting to take care of our kids, wanting to take better care of our communities. And that is like one little piece of the greater picture in my mind. So, our great public schools and opportunities for all of our students, but also, preserving a clean and pristine environment. There's a reason a lot of us live in Montana, why we live here. It's because we have this amazing landscape and place that we want to take good care of. And for me, it's all these issues are connected kind of in the welfare of our communities, so clean air and water and preserving our public lands. And, these are issues that are really incredibly important here and all, I think, connected in kind of the grand scheme of public health and the welfare of our kids and our communities.
Yeah, and it seems like environment should be an issue that you can come to bipartisan agreement about, especially in a place like Montana that relies on things like tourism, which, obviously you've got to keep the environment clean for people to want to come and visit. So, mm-hmm. I know it hasn't always been an issue people can find bipartisan consensus on, but it seems like there should be opportunity there.
There is, and it depends on what kind of piece of the environment you're talking about. There are complicated issues in Montana. So, for instance, the coal industry is big, but it's a dying industry, and we need to be leaders in innovations in energy and renewable energy. But you have to take care of those people who have their livelihoods are wrapped up in a dying industry. So it's not simple. There are people involved. There's the environment involved, and you have to make decisions that are going to be good for the long run and for the most people. So it's not kind of, these black and white issues, and there are people on both sides of the aisle who are on both sides of, some of these issues. So, which I think is good, because I think, you're hopefully representatives are taking a look at these issues from as unbiased a perspective as they can, and looking at science and looking at where we want to be in 10, 20, 100 years, and making decisions that are sound and good for our state.
Well, it seems like you should have some room for windmills.
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah. Yeah, and the solar industry is really picking up here, too. We do have a lot of good sunshine in Montana, too.
Making me want to come back and go hike.
Yeah, do.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to make sure that our listeners know about you or running for office or Montana?
It's been an amazing experience getting out there and knocking on doors and finding out what's really important to voters in my district. And it's been interesting. We've been out there since probably last October, I guess, knocking on doors and talking to people. And as the primary is coming up, so it's June 5th is our primary, and as we've gotten closer to it and more people know about the candidates and everything, and people now, as I'm coming to the door, they say, I've heard about you. Oh, you're the person from Moms Demand Action, and they're excited about it. And it was, it's an amazing feeling to kind of have worked very hard on this issue that has not always been the most popular issue in Montana, but we slogged through. And to come through to a place right now where people are excited to be part of the movement, and they're excited to be supporting somebody, who has been a part of this since the beginning. And it's making me very just proud of our work and of my campaign. And I hope that we're able to send a message that a gun violence prevention activist can be elected in Montana and make a difference. So I'm hoping that's where we end up.
Excellent. And we will put links to your website and your Facebook page up on our show notes.